Hello, and welcome to another edition of Loremaker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm your host for this week, senior writer Will Weisbaum, and for those of you joining us for the first time, Loremaker's Guide to the Galaxy is where us, the Loremakers, get to give you an inside look into all of the many wonderful systems that are in Star Citizen. Talking about the planets that you can find, talking about the lore and history, and bringing them all together for fun and entertainment. Well, let's head over now to the star map, which is one of Star Citizen's best features, where you get to explore the entire empire of the UE and beyond. Right now we're looking at Earth, and from there we're heading today to the system of Corel, where we will explore some of the unique traits of our empire mingling with the Banu. So let's head there now using our handy dandy route. Oh, let's do a route. I always want to do a route from Earth to Corel. Corel. And then we're going to, let's say I have a large ship because I'm a trader, and if I'm heading to Corel, I'm going to want to sell some stuff, you know? Calculate. Oh, 7 stops, that seems good. It's a lot more flying, 193 AU, so I'm going to eat up fuel on that end, but I think the lack of jumps is really going to save me money in the long run, so let's do that. And it just zoomed into the sun. And from there, we're going to head to Davian, hop on through, and then Killian to Ellis, and then to Nexus, Hades, we're getting closer, Nemo. Oh, this is exciting. And then we're gonna jump through the Nemo Corel jump. Wow. And there we are. Welcome to Corel. So this is a system that is as fun to say as it is to yell. Humans first arrived here in 2449, and this was on the heels of our first contact with the Banu, which happened in 2438, when a human accidentally bumped into a Banu floating out in Davian. And from there, after we had our first treaty in place, there was a big push for human expansion and discovery, because now that we knew that there was another species out there, it was all that more motivation to get out there and discover things. What's interesting about Corel is that it was actually found not through discovery per se, but because a human made a deal with a Banu trader for some star maps. And this was one of the interesting pieces of information that he gleaned from it. And so humanity rushed into Corel, and while there was Banu presence here, it wasn't that heavy. They were using the system mostly for transit, and there was a few guilds set up here doing stuff, but it was relatively untouched. None of the planets were naturally habitable, and the Banu hadn't terraformed them yet. So the humans arrived and sort of claimed it for themselves. There was a little bit of tentativeness when we first got in there about, like, will the Banu be cool with this? But the Banu were basically like, can we still trade here? The humans were like, yeah. And the Banu were like, it's cool. Like, they sold us like the streamers that we used at the ceremony when we claimed it. It was a lot of fun. So there are 6 planets in Corel. Can I see all of them? Let me zoom out. And we got that fun little woggly one of Corel 6. We'll get to that in a second. We'll start. The sun is a G4 main sequence. And the system is really known for being the main trade lane between the UEE and the Banu systems. Because if you head out from here, you can see that it's connected. Oh, I'm on the wrong page. Display. There we go. We can check out here all the fancy trade routes, and you can see that Corel's hooked into Geddon, which is a Banu system, and from there it goes back out. So all this trade just comes barging in through the system. And because of that, very early on, the UNE established kind of a checkpoint here back in the early days. And because while it wasn't as much of a concern of what the humans were sending into Banu space. It was much more of a concern of what the Banu were sending our way. There was a bit of an issue early on with slave trade coming in through Coral, and the UNE quickly tried to put a stop with that. The Banu having kind of different feelings towards slavery. They view it as indentured servitude, you know, because you can always buy your way out. But humans were still a little uncomfortable with it at the time and remain so to this day. Now, when the humans started settling in here en masse, one of the things that came along with it were Banus who were looking specifically to learn how to trade better with humans. So like Banu trade guilds that specialized in human trade. So they started getting an idea of what were the products from Banu space that humans were interested in buying. And some of the very earliest Banu ships to ever be retrofitted for human use came out of Coral. The main attraction point, the main thing that people come to visit is Coral 3, also known as Lo. It is a terrestrial rocky planet that was terraformed early on. And it has UEE representation nowadays. And the people who live here are mostly people who serve the trade industry. And that's both humans and the Banu. So you got tons of Banu trade guilds, or Suli is their term for it. And they surround in these kind of large frontier type settlements that can vary in size pretty drastically from just a few people all the way up to the biggest city, which is New Junction. New Junction was formed after the old city, which was really just called Junction, burned down, and they rebuilt, and we got New Junction out of it. It's got places for repairing your ship, it's got a ton of storage warehouses, it's got TDDs, it's got trade points, and it's got a ton of custom houses. There are large lines every day as the UE processes tons and tons of cargo moving through the system. And it's kind of notorious for sometimes having to wait and fill out the paperwork, and a lot of ships have to get scanned just to make sure that everything's kosher coming in. And around that, a lot of entertainment stuff has sprung up to entertain people as they're waiting in New Junction to get their stuff processed, as well as maybe they've been on the long haul and this is their first time back in human space after a long time at Banu space. And so there's this kind of interesting mix of Banu and human entertainment that's sprung up here, places to drink and watch a show and spend a comfortable night, as well as, with it's one of the warmer spots on the planet, so that sweltering heat and dust can really get to you. So having a nice long cool drink is something that you would hunt down with quite eagerly. And so yeah, the UE has tried to stop smuggling into the Empire and have a pretty big presence here, but they're kind of focused. So you still have a lot of crime happening here in the outskirts of the planet, and with this many ships coming in, things go awry. And it seems sometimes that the UE have focused more on the economic issues than really the crime issues in the area. So you have to kind of keep your wits about you as you go here. And from there, we can move on to the next biggest settlement, which is Coral 4. Oh, where are you at? There you are, Castor. So we'll zoom in here. Now, Castor is a desert planet, a frozen desert planet, and it was terraformed. And it was terraformed during the Messer area. And it was kind of questionable why they would go through the effort of terraforming this planet. Even when they spent billions of credits and all said was done, it was kind of still uninhabitable for all intents and purposes. The ice was never melted. It's on the very edge of the green zone. And so there were some people who were theorizing that maybe the Messers had ideas of possibly invading Banu space, and this was going to be their launching point. Or maybe they were worried about the Banu reprising if a Xi'an Cold War ever kicked off, who knows. But there are military installations still on the planet from those days, and not much is known about what happens in those. Pretty much everyone else is there for mining purposes or for harvesting ice. There are some very rare minerals that are hard to get at because of the tough living situations there, but people struggle for years in order just to hit one load, and that can be enough to kind of justify the 10 years that you've spent slogging away in a frozen wasteland. So it's kind of a very hard, weary people who live on Castor. From there, let's go back and look at the other planets that we'd skipped over earlier. We have the innermost planet, which is Coral 1. Coral is an iron planet. It was started off as kind of a rocky world, very close to the sun, and over a bunch of collisions and other things happened and blasted away its surface till just the iron core remained, and that kind of solidified as it was exposed. And so now you have this very interesting smooth iron landscape, which some people use to get iron, but there's cheaper sources of iron available. From there we can go to Coral 2, which is kind of funnily enough the opposite of Coral 1. Coral 1 is all core, Coral 2 has no core. I was trying to think of a Falcor joke there, but it didn't happen. Live studio audience. So Coral 2 has no core and has no magnetic field as well without a core, so it's got no atmosphere, has been blasted away, and the surface though has still a good amount of mineral deposits remaining, and that's mostly because there's been years and years and years of legal disputes over who has the correct mining rights to the planet. Back in the UNE days, people were making claims. There was also outstanding Banu claims that have gone and come back. Kind of interesting things as Banu have traded the rights. It's gotten more complicated as generations have come and gone, since there's no usually continual line with the Banu. And then also you have the complication of when the Messers swept into the system and they tried to take back, and then when the Messers dissolved, there was an argument that those rights should revert to the original owners and blah, blah, blah. So huge complication. So people are expecting that hopefully it might revert back to the government for a new resale in a year, and results are still pending on that. Coral 5, which is located all the way out here, is pretty much your standard gas giant, massive red and brown planet that has some gas harvesting. And we have also Coral 6, which has this funky, odd orbit. Look at that, totally off the wall. It's so distant and stuff that pretty much it has very little contact other than somewhat of a reputation for being a bit of a smuggler's paradise who operate out of the trade lanes and come up here to store their goods and take advantage of all the trade. Now, a couple other points as we come to the end of Coral System. Not only is it known for its trade, it's been the starting point for a couple big businesses in the empire. Probably the most well-known is Big Benny's got its start, actually, way back in the days before it was bought up by Terra Mills. It started off on low. Benicio Lewis Jr. Had a transfer station out here, and his dad used to always cook these kacha, which is kind of like a ramen-like noodle, and everyone would come there to eat, and it was a really filling and satisfying meal for not a lot. And it kind of took off from there and became really popular in the system, and that's when Terra Mills noticed it, bought it up, and turned it into the huge franchise that it is today. Big Benny himself was named after Benicio Sr., Benicio Lewis Jr.'s father, so that's who Big Benny was. You know, and they have flavors like the original classic, coconut curry, a whole bunch of other delicious stuff to taste. The other company that came out of Coral, was Store All, which is one of the big cargo container companies. It started in 2745 as Corel Limited Liability Corporation. And you know, before that it was known as Transgo, and has a whole bunch of like different names before that. But basically it just became the de facto manufacturer of Store-All containers, and kind of got it standardized here because so much trade was going through here, and the need to standardize across all the ships just for convenience. So that's it. So Corel, long story short, a lot of trade, a lot of customs, a lot of noodles. So good time to be had. Hope you get to check it out when you're in the verse. And until next time, this has been Lore Maker's Guide to the Galaxy. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the subscribers for making shows like this possible. Have a great one, everyone.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.